I think you'll find, man, I just really enjoy the conversation and
Yeah.
just getting to know folks and
Hmm.
I had I don't know, I think I probably never met a stranger, right? It's just where you where
Yeah.
we all kind of jump in, but
That's
um
great.
you've got a big background in digital marketing, right? It's one of your
Yeah. Yeah.
um how did you with your digital marketing stuff, was it like was you an early 2000s adopter, or did you find your way in probably during the social media kind of advent? What was that like for you?
No, definitely like really late 90s, probably, gosh, 97, 98.
Oh
So
wow,
going into
yeah,
the early
that's yeah.
2000s.
Hey
Yeah.
folks, we're just shooting a breeze here. This is not what we're here to talk about. I was just curious because I found it 10 years
Yeah.
later. I
Okay.
stumbled in like '07. So you were
Yeah.
man, that was some different times.
Yeah, I mean, it really came about from doing music. I used to, as a friend of mine, we actually had a rap group. So he built the website. He knew HTML, or he learned HTML. That was back when there really wasn't YouTube, and like you had to learn everything yourself.
Yeah.
So he built the website, and everything else was just like learning how can we use email to reach fans or get new fans. And even before Facebook, like when MySpace
Yeah.
was really popping, like creating content, putting songs out there, and also like learning how to do Google ads and Facebook ads when Facebook first started doing those. Like, how can we do ads that are relatively inexpensive and targeted? And you just had to learn everything yourself back then. So that's the genesis of what I do now with my company, Ample Marketing. It's a digital marketing consultancy.
Yeah. I was in law enforcement around the 97, 98 time, so no need for it whatsoever. And as
Yeah.
that career ended, I was fortunate enough, like technology, I understood it kind of like probably where you did, where you stumbled your way through it, you could teach yourself
Yeah.
type stuff. And
Hmm.
I stumbled my way through it. So I needed a job. And the company that I ended up, or this very small business that I went to work for, that was what they needed. They're like, we want to, this is '08.
Hmm.
He was like, we want to be able to grow our footprint digitally, and he got behind me, and like
Yeah.
he really believed in me and just let me
Hmm.
learn. I read books, right? Because your
Yeah.
YouTube's there, but it's not there. It's you trying to figure
Right.
out stuff still, and by that time, and then that's when Facebook switched from
Yeah.
um,
Like
friend stuff
allegedness.
to pages, right? It switched in
Right.
before
Right.
we
Right.
by '08. Everybody kind of had that the connection was there, but they started pushing small business into pages to get their
Hmm.
marketing
Right.
campaigns
Yeah.
launched. So
Yeah.
I was right there, man. We switched from we still do a lot of Google stuff, but we moved a lot into
Mhm.
Facebook advertising. Lead generation
Yeah.
came easier for us there, and
Yeah.
um,
I think it
uh,
depends on your business. There's certainly a case where Google ads work better and a case
yeah,
where Facebook ads work better. Sometimes you use both depending on what your product or service is.
yeah. We one of the things I noticed, and I kind of coach other um, marketers and some folks on this. I'm like, it's all pay attention to that pay per click, right? Because we drove this one particular keyword from about $5 to $105 in just competing
Wow.
with different people. Um,
Wow.
and
That's
so
crazy.
I yeah, I'm
That's
like
per
don't
click, like a
yeah
hundred
per
dollars per
click.
click.
Yeah,
Jeez. That's
yeah, it was
crazy.
100. It was $105, and then like that don't come down. That's like your taxes, right? They
Right.
don't take that.
Right.
That's
Right. Right. Only
so
goes up.
yeah. You have to stop using it in order for that to come back down. So we took
Yeah.
what that budget and we put it into the feeds on Facebook,
Hmm.
and it performed
Yeah. Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
paying attention. That was our kind of our always my deciding factor is if I can't fit the client's budget into a
That's
keyword
it.
friendly budget, then Facebook's
Yeah.
kind of where we go. Folks, I
Yeah.
told you we're not here to talk old a couple geeks here, showing off our geek skills. That's not why we're here today. We're back on the Second Chance podcast, where we dive into stories of resilience, reinvention, and redemption. Today, we're joined by marketing expert, but best-selling author Jeremy Haselwood. With a career built on purpose-driven branding and digital strategy, Jeremy knows what it takes to bounce back from setbacks and turn them into opportunities. But he's got a brand new book out, and that's what we want to talk about today. It's a book on just that lines right in here with the second podcast theme. So I want to tee him up. Jeremy, we geeked out there for a minute, but you've got your book. Tell me about your book title, and then talk to me about what inspired you to get that thing right.
Sure. Yeah, my book is called Finding Your Edge: How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose. And it really fits right in with the theme of your podcast, the Second Chance podcast, because it really came about for me. I told a little bit about my story with music. I'm from Oklahoma originally and moved to Atlanta in 98 and to pursue a music career, and went hard in my 20s, did everything I could do in the Atlanta area, and got to a point where it was like, had some mild success as an independent artist, but it got to a point where it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I followed my dream from Oklahoma to Atlanta, but it turned into just a different situation. Like the grind was, I'm not even going to say it was too much. Like the grind wasn't too much. I think just the inside of the music industry was not what I wanted to participate in anymore. Just like the hustle, the politics, the commoditization of artists, it just didn't fit my soul anymore. So I had to really figure out who I was and what I wanted to do, and hence my second chance, and since that point, like, I rediscovered myself, went back to school, got my master's, executive MBA, started my own company, a marketing consulting company, and I've published 2 books, self-published 2 books, and I really feel like I have had that second chance and made the most of it. My most recent one is about finding your purpose, and it takes inject some stories of my own, of my past, and what got me where I am today, and then also some frameworks that I developed along the way that helped me get in touch with myself and rediscover myself and how I planned and organized and had the perseverance to change the trajectory of my life.
Just in the your first book and on the music side of things, what kind of inspired you? I know that the thing's turning, but was there anything significant, or what kind of made you learn about yourself, and then as you are moving through your career, but what did you learn about yourself in those in that adversity?
Yeah, really that lull in between music and what to do next was probably where I reflected on the learning, because I was learning the whole time and I didn't know it. And I think that's most people, whether you're at a job or if you're pursuing a goal, if you're an entrepreneur, whatever the case, as you're doing things, this hustle or day-to-day drive productivity, even though you consider it work and you're making progress, we don't really pause and think about what have I actually learned. And I didn't do that while I was in the music industry. You just do something and you do it again, and you get better and better and better and better, but you don't realize it. But looking back, when I walked away from it, I was like, man, what did I learn? These are the questions I literally asked myself. What skills did I acquire over that almost 15-year period that I was doing music? And what I found was it wasn't so much about making music and producing, but it was more orchestrating and strategy. So on the music side, I was writing the lyrics, I was rapping, I was singing hooks, I was making the beats, I was mixing the beats, I was performing, I had street teams that I work with, and I was helping to create flyers and building websites and reaching out on social media, building a presence. So it's all these different pieces that I was learning, but it was more how to orchestrate all this in order to put a product or service out to the market. And, doing music, like, you are the product or service. So just taking that information, I'm like, okay, so I'm good at orchestrating. How can I orchestrate and do something that really stirs my soul? And that's when I started to look at what my talents were. I'm good at marketing. I enjoy marketing, and started to pursue that route as well.
You also, if you go back and listen, you'll find a couple episodes where I classify someone as a hope dealer. and you
Mhm.
call yourself that messenger of hope. Where did that
Yeah.
title come from?
It looked at, I spent a lot of time, especially writing this book. If I'm teaching people about purpose, what is my purpose? And I think a lot of people confuse passion with purpose. And that's one
Yeah.
thing that I distinguish in my book. It's like, hey, I'm passionate about this, so it must be my purpose. But that's not the case, because I tell people, like, I'm passionate about college football. Like, you can see like helmets up here. But it's not my purpose to play college football. I'm passionate about traveling. That's not my purpose, though. So your passion is not your purpose. So for me, I'm like, what is really at the heart of what I want to do and what I want to be in this world? And it's really inspiring, and it's giving people hope. Like, my book is, it would be classified as a self-help or life transformation book, but it's really a hope book. It's a book saying, if you're in position A right now and you're trying to get to position B and you're stuck, this is a book that provides hope that you can get there. Because I think a lot of times we lose the battle of the mind, and we don't have that hope that we need in order to achieve the next step, and to level up our life and to really step into who we were created to be. So that's how it came about for me. It was so obvious right in front of me when I really looked at what stirred my soul. It was hope, it was encouragement, and letting people know that you can do this. Like, there is a hope. You're not, as long as you're alive and breathing, you have the day, you have the moment. So let's make the most of it.
That's big, man. That's um, we overlook that, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
we get stuck in those we get stuck in a ditch, and we're fighting to try to get the car back in the road, but we keep riding in the ditch, right?
Yeah.
Um, it takes folks like yourself to come along and help that nudge. And the one thing I'd made a note on it, because you had kind of put it in your note there. There's a lot of noise in the self help world, and when you get to
Yeah.
your book, what do you think makes your book? What do you think makes your book special and different, and to where it's going to impact, and why that
Yeah.
person should pick that book up?
No, and that question that you asked me are the questions that kept me from writing my book and
Yeah,
releasing it for a long time. Because
yeah,
it's like, man, you can go to any bookstore or online and search for self-help, and there's tons and tons and tons and tons of books and about self-help. So I'm like, what makes me any different? Like, why would I put another book out there that's telling someone how to better themselves when there's great authors out there, there's great materials out there. So why me? And then, I started talking to some people, like close friends, family, telling them, hey, I want to do this, but I don't know, why should I? And they're like, well, why not?
why
And
not?
so I think that's what we have to start asking ourselves is, why not me? I mean, there's people that I might like that inspire me, but my wife or my friends, they may not like that person. It may rub them the wrong way. They may not like the message. They may not like the way that person talks. They may not like the way that person carries himself. And so it's like, you just have to be true to you. Like, if it is your calling, go after it. Because yes, my book is about self-help. There's a lot of other ones. My book's not for everybody, so I don't
Yeah.
want to say, hey, this is the book that you should get. No, it's a book that you should get if you're on that path of trying to discover yourself and create that purpose in your life. The pieces that I believe are unique about my book, I do have a framework that I go over. My book is called Finding Your Edge, and EDGE is an acronym that stands for eliminate distractions, discover yourself, generate goals, and enact discipline.
Love it.
So this is really a model of how you start to discover purpose. So it's a unique framework that I'm teaching in my book, and also at the end of each chapter, I have questions that are reflective questions. So it's not just a book that you read and you put back up. It's certainly a book that you will get out of this what you put into it. It has a lot of questions that will help to unlock and open up new ideas. And I've got messages from people that say, you know what, your book really challenged me, and
Yeah.
it made me think about things that I haven't thought of since a child. So it's been really helpful in my personal growth, just having your book around. So it's been really good to know that you put something out and people actually read it, and it is doing what the intent was for when I published it.
You touched on a lot there. Like, I've been there in the same thing. I've got I'm working on that book. I probably don't give it enough attention because I'll do what you said. I'm like, it's just another story about a
Yeah.
guy, right?
Right.
But then I'll get a little inspiration from Jeremy, Jeremy, but
Yeah.
then my kids, right? I'm like, man, this is
Yeah.
something for them, and
Right.
um, the things that we do. And I think you speak to those people that are on the fence about taking action on a project or something they want to do. So it's not
Hmm.
just about us here promoting, your
Yeah.
work, but it's about us encouraging, the folks that are out here listening. I think we're probably 5 to 10 apart, and most of my audience, when I look at my stats, they're about 30, 35, 40 age range, right? So they're
Hmm.
where I
Yeah.
was in different places. So a few years back, but there's no reason why you can't go write your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially now, Jeremy. Heck, my lady the other day, man, Amazon self-published.
Yeah. I mean, that's how mine are. Mine are both self-published, which is another skill you have to learn. But both of them hit the bestseller on Amazon, which I didn't think my first book was about digital fundraising. So I'm like, okay, this one can probably hit it for nonprofit marketing, which it did. And it's still on there because there's not a ton of nonprofit
Right.
marketing books. But a personal development book, I was like, I'm putting it out like in my dreams, like it'd be great if it hits like a bestseller. And the first week out, it was the #2 new release in life transformation books. So I'm like, I didn't expect that. Like when I saw that, I had tears in my eyes. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
like this is amazing. So yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, not if, because if you're hearing our voices, you are listening to this
Yeah.
podcast. And if you are on the fence, like do it. Like don't say why me. It's like why not me? Like
Yeah.
take that action, do it for yourself. And if you do have a book in mind, you can publish it through Amazon, like at no cost. I mean, the cost that I had because I wanted to do it right, I actually paid someone to proofread it, and
Yeah.
I paid an editor to make some edits and design the cover and the inside of the book. So there was money. My first book, I paid a proofreader, but I designed the cover myself and the inside myself. So you can do it relatively inexpensive. So don't let that keep you from putting your work out into the world.
You echoed exactly what she did. I think she told me by the time she was done, she had about 6 grand invested in
Hmm.
copywriting, editing, book
Hmm.
covering. But here's what I'll tell you, folks, those are your biggest deals, right?
Yeah.
Those can be, there's probably, and I can't remember, I forgot to ask her when she put hers out, but there's probably, that technology is changing by the day now. We know that
Yeah.
from working in the digital landscape, right? So
Hmm.
there's all sorts of those dollars are being driven down just through new technology that's entering the market. So what
Yeah.
um, what was then is probably not now. So that's to publish that's probably not cheapened up. The other thing I would echo, Jeremy, no,
Hmm.
I'll tell this to layer in on that. When you're writing your book, sometimes don't worry about it's a good worry, but don't focus on what it cost you. Think about what it's going to make you long term or the
Yeah.
impact that it's going to make and how that's going to.
Yeah.
So, like me and her was talking, is don't try to play, you ain't paying off this credit card next month, right? Let's play this long game with your book and
Yeah.
get the funding in place where you can drag that funding out over time.
Yeah.
And if you are cash strapped, right?
Yeah.
And you need that, but don't do set yourself up for this is a business coach, Jeff, giving you some advice.
Okay.
Is set yourself up to where you're able to, if cash is a problem, we can spread that repayment or recoup of your investment on your book out over time too. So
Yeah. I mean, I call it my get rich slow scheme because,
yeah,
yeah, to make money off of books is, yeah, unless you are selling thousands of books, it's you're not going to make a lot of money off of book sales. However, I will echo similar to what you said. My book for me is a marketing tool.
yeah,
It's not. That's what it ends up being. Like the book is a product of impact for someone to consume, and that's what I wrote it for. However, it also opens up doors for me because there are people that have read it or heard about it. So you get invited to speak or do some consulting. And so even with my first book with digital fundraising, like I've made a lot more money off of the consulting opportunities that it provided for me than I have the book sales. And with my newer book, even though it's a personal development, I've been able to do some workshops and have some speaking opportunities that, more than paid for the cost of the book. So it's just really getting it out there, having it available. and not worrying about. I'm not sitting here. People ask me like, how's your book selling? I'm like, I don't even look at my numbers. Like, I know I get some money that hits my account each month from Amazon, but I honestly don't even look at that because I don't. I'm not in this to make money from the book. I'm in this to make impact. So whether that's having the book out there or doing speaking or workshops, like that's really what I'm looking at is the bigger picture.
In the speakers group I worked with, that was one of the things they had really emphasized to us was
Hmm.
the book helps legitimize your presence.
Yeah.
And then the book becomes something that you're, especially for the guys that are doing like me, where it's a life story type thing, or
Yep.
incident
Hmm.
driven guys that where it's and girls where the book helps legitimize you in the world. It helps you have authority, but then your money
Hmm.
comes from all the other speaking and the events and appearances and things like that. The book is
Yeah.
content, right? It's content that we
Yeah.
can repurpose over time.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you said about uh, your book that you're in process of, and why should you do it, and just going back to your story being unique. There's people that will read my book that can't really relate to my story. It talks about some music industry stuff. A young artist pursuing a dream in music, but then it also talks about being fired from or laid off from corporate America and what that looked like as you're going through a job loss. And there's people that will resonate with,
Yeah,
like, man, I've been there before. I know how that feels, but not everybody can. Your story is unique. There's people that will relate to your story that won't relate to mine.
yeah,
So everybody has a story. And to me, it's like really about connection. It's not so much about putting out a self-help book. It's like, what are you writing about where an audience can connect you, where someone else out there is like, man, I know how that feels. Like, so I can relate to this author a lot more because he or she is like me. So I'm going to listen to what he or she says because they've been through it and they know how I feel. So you connect with the author and you connect with the material a little bit more. And that's more of an individual level. It's not this big macro level of relation. It's relating to the author and what their story is.
do you feel so after you left music, did you end up in corporate? Is that where your path took you?
I was doing that at the same time.
Same. There
So
you go.
music
That's
industry is like feast or famine.
yeah.
Like you're either making money or you're making no money. And I was at the making no money end of that spectrum. So yeah, I was working in corporate America. I say that was my 9 to 5, and then my 5 to 9 was doing music. So I would go home, the apartment that my roommate, who was also the guy I did music with, the apartment we had a little studio in there, the entry closet to our apartment. We had like made that a vocal booth and put stapled like the egg crates in the vocal booth. So we were recording, mixing, producing, and then performing wherever we could. And that was what our day looked like. It's like you go to work just because you need the money to survive and help to fund your dream. And then the rest of the time, like you're just going after it. And I went through several years of my life just sleeping like 4 hours a night because that's how serious the grind was to me. But I was never tired though. I was much
Yeah.
younger then, so I think you have that energy and you're like, now's the time to do it. But doing that for 3, 4, 5 years, it was. I have zero regrets, man. I look back at
Oh
that time
yeah.
of my life, and it really made me who I am, and I'm really proud of what I was able to do and show myself. And even like you were talking about with your kids, being able to share that with your kids and
Yeah.
giving them some inspiration along the way as well.
Take me back because I'm curious. There's a kid from
Hmm.
Oklahoma. There's a kid
Yeah.
from Oklahoma. We're
Yeah.
not too far apart in age. What year were you born? Give me some perspective here.
No, 77.
All right, we're right here together.
Okay.
Um, so I could probably take you to 85, 86, and my
Okay.
classmate brings me this tape, and he's like, "Hey man, I had a cousin that went to New York." He says, "You got to hear this."
Yeah.
Right? And he brings me this
Hmm.
tape. So Chris, this is a little bit of me stealing your time. He gives me
Yeah.
this tape, and it's like these street tapes these guys were putting out back then of just rap music.
Yeah.
And so I fell
Hmm.
into some of your very, very like Chuck D's and some of these
Yeah. Yeah.
Boogie Down Productions and some of the
Yeah.
very, very early. But
Yep.
then, you had Sugar Hill Gang, who had kind of was a little more known, and they'd been on some of the
Hmm.
Saturday night, like not Disco Fever, but it was Solid Gold and some of the other stuff. So you had
Oh
seen
yeah.
them,
Yeah.
but then he
Yep.
would bring me these tapes, and Um, what was some earlier influences for you just in that
Well,
industry? How did you?
let,
I told you how I kind of discovered rap music as a kid.
well, let me ask you this, Jeff. Like, do you remember who was on? Was it a mixtape that you had in '85?
Now, I mean, this is a bootleg, right? So this
Oh,
is
okay. Do you know who the artist was, or do you remember who it was?
I'm going you're it is
I mean,
like
if not, that's okay. I'm just trying
no,
to,
I'm thinking it's
just
like
curious.
Grandmaster, like you get into the
Yeah, yeah.
Grandmaster Funk stuff, and then you get into
Grandmaster
then
Flash, yeah, Melly
yeah,
Mel.
or, yeah, Grandmaster
Hmm.
Flash, and then you have LL Cool J is shortly thereafter, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, he's shortly thereafter, but it's New York rappers.
Hmm.
Um, oh gosh, I'm gonna look him up, Jeremy.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
all right. So, well, I'll take the. I'm not Heat. Sorry. I'll take the focus off that because I was just very
well,
curious. Like,
hang on
who
here. So
was?
then you get into your
Okay.
Run DMC. So it's prior to
Oh
Run
yeah, yeah.
DMC because mainstream
Okay.
um they were very um see a rapper's delight, but I think this was after that. This was street stuff, right? This was
Yeah. I mean, it could have been like with the message with like Grandmaster Flash, Melly Mel, Furious Five, some of them. But
Furious
I don't.
Five
For
sounds, yep.
me, I think like the first that I remember was probably like Nucleus with Jam on it.
Yes.
Um, and then that whole next era with like Beastie Boys and Run DMC, Slick Rick, Big Daddy Kane, like you said, Public Enemy, Karis One, like
Yeah.
that whole era.
You so probably the one that I wore out was Eric B and Rakim paid
Oh
in
yeah,
full.
yeah,
Like just
yep,
thinking of a master plan, right? I mean, it
yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah,
beat, just
right, right, right.
nothing but sweat inside my
Oh
hands,
man,
right? So I
yeah,
could.
yeah, yeah.
That was the one that he would dig into his pocket. All his money was spent coming up with
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I can remember that one like I'm a
The
little kid. Yeah,
yeah,
because
man.
I wrote with that tape, but that you hear that sampled all the time, man, and it'll
Oh
take
yeah,
me back.
doom,
My
doom,
daughters
doom,
like singing
doom,
that,
doom, doom, doom.
right?
Yep, yep.
um,
No.
that was the one, but your Beastie Boys was probably that one hit school, and all the kids liked it, right? So
Oh
the but the
yeah,
stuff, the
yeah.
Eric B's and some of the other stuff like the kids like me, I'm a white kid, right? So kids like me
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
necessarily, it wasn't a mainstream type thing. So
Right.
me and the guys I ran around with, that was ours. And then your Big Daddy Kane's,
Yeah.
that was more my high school years. I remember sitting in,
Yeah.
we all had big speakers then, Jeremy.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
We all had an amp and big speakers then. So that
Oh
was,
yeah. In the
we
cars,
had,
the 10-inch or 12-inch subwoofers with the amps in the car. The
you know,
Pioneer with the pull-out stereos that you'd walk around the mall with.
if you had an Alpine with a pull out, you had
Oh
money.
man.
Like you were
Come on, man.
the other one, and then you had when they brought out MTV Raps. We were in high school
Oh yeah.
when Yo MTV came out with those
Yep.
guys. So then
Yep.
you were able to find like Third Base and some of
Hmm.
those other as maybe
Yeah.
2 hit, 3 hit guys that otherwise wouldn't have probably made it in the industry type thing. But it was a lot of.
Yeah.
I just remember that where I was. Now take me back. You had those early influences, but um,
Hmm.
and I went into public safety, went on to law
Yeah.
enforcement. You pursued a career at this. Where does that
Yeah.
influence come in Oklahoma?
Well, I guess I used to play basketball a lot. I mean, it was really my dream. Like, I wanted to be in the NBA one day.
Yeah,
So, in the music, like, I couldn't consume enough hip hop, and it was more about like the beats and the stories. Like,
yeah,
I listened to like some rock back then, of course, like some pop, but there was the way that the music moved grabbed me in a way that the other genres didn't move me. So when you look at like a white kid from hip hop is like, what is it about hip hop? Because it's a black art form and things that they're talking about are black culture, black community. But to me, it was more like the stories and
yeah,
and even the poetry, man. Like when you look at like what Rakim is saying, it's just
yeah.
like the way that he was putting his words together was like so witty and clever. Like there's no other form of music that was doing that. So to me, it was smart music, it was conscious, and it was a level of conscious that you didn't get in any other form of music. It was like, love songs or, whatever. There's a lot of country music, of course, in Oklahoma. So relationships, things about dogs and drinking beer and whatever. But hip hop at the time was like, it was new. Every artist was trying to be different. You remember that era. Now it's like
Yes.
everybody's trying to be the same. So it's like if one artist was doing it, you couldn't come and do the same thing that artist was doing. You would be like rejected. Um, so I couldn't consume enough. And I ended up moving schools when I was a sophomore in high school. My dad and stepmother moved to another town in Oklahoma, and my brother and I moved to go live with my mother in Oklahoma City. And I didn't know anybody at this school. Now, so before I moved, I had a friend where I grew up in Guthrie, Oklahoma, that's like, man, you listen to so much hip hop, like have you ever thought about writing or rapping? I was like, no, I just want to listen to it. I have no desire to be an artist. But when I moved and I didn't know anybody, I just started listening to beats, and I'm like sitting at a lunchroom table by myself because I didn't know anybody. It was very lonely. So I just had my Walkman in, and I just started writing and just writing and writing and writing. And the friend and I ended up doing music with, we like summertime made like a short song that we had recorded like in our bedroom with not even a microphone. We just had, a little stereo that had microphones on it. We just rapped into it. And we let our friends check it out, and they were like, their mind was just blown. They're like, oh, this is incredible. This is great. So like that inspired me. I was like, wow, like to put something out, to create something that people got excited about. That was exciting for me. So we just started writing more and producing more. And then finally, I had a job. I was bussing tables in high school and saving up money to go to a real recording studio. And we ended up putting out like an EP when I was in high school. It had 5 songs on it. And we got cassettes made up, and we were selling them out of our lockers at high school, out of our cars, and move on to college. I was still doing music, and it just got to this point where I was like, I want to see how far we can take this. I enjoy this, like performing, especially like 2 white dudes doing hip hop. It was like we always respected the art. We were never trying to be anything that we weren't. Even though we were influenced by certain artists and how they rap, like we kept it to what we know and what we did. And we come from that school, like we're not following any trend. We're going to be us, and we're going to rap about what we know about. But it got to a point I was like, I want to see how far we can take it. So ended up moving to Atlanta and pursuing it and going as hard as we could. So it was an exciting time, and I loved just being in the studio. We connected with some other artists in Oklahoma City before we moved, and had kind of like a little unit of artists and producers, a very like family environment, very creative environment. And that really helped shape, what I'm doing now as well.
I had to get my brain working. So
Yeah.
Curtis Blow, all right, so you had Curtis
Of
Blow,
course.
all right,
Yep.
but then you had Houdini, right? So here's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Here you had Houdini is kind of, they want to be stream. They want to be the Gap Band, but they're over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have
Mm-hmm.
a different little sound and so they're kind of there. And then here comes like Eric B and some of those guys, and it
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
beat. You hit it.
Mm-hmm.
And then plus, I had to hit you with some Eric B because you said you was gonna let me off the hook. So I had to qualify that I knew what I was
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
There's a whole story that you could write because listen, man, there's a lot of people that would just psych themselves out or just go into that wouldn't be able to take that step to go as a couple white dudes to go into a predominantly
Yeah.
black culture type thing, right? They would probably
Yeah.
just there's people out there that would do that. So there's
Yeah.
I want to recognize that, man. There's a lot of
Yeah.
courage that's totally out of most people's comfort zone to
Yeah.
go operate in an area where um, it's not really yours. But then
Yeah.
you was talking about their poetry. That's where I
Mm-hmm.
really listened to the words. I could never the Houdini, all those things, Eric B's, and it wasn't too hard. And when NWA came out, it was
Mm-hmm.
different, right? It
Yeah.
changed
Yeah.
a lot. A
Yeah.
lot of the gangster rap eras really kicked
Yeah.
off. But if you go back
Yeah.
and listen to like Eric B's song, there he's talking about
Mm-hmm.
robbing people, right? His had
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
rob people for money was what
Right.
he um, was talking about. That's
Yeah.
a really neat. You can do a book on that, man.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about it. And I think I've actually framed out like some chapters to do a book on that. So,
It
and I don't know if you can
is.
see my background here, but that's my Slick Rick action figure.
Um, he was. I remember when his children's story came out was the
Mm-hmm.
most. just the way it all flowed.
Yeah,
And
the video.
yeah, I had that one, and it was on replay too. We could do all the
Oh yeah.
words. Um,
Yep.
we could do all the words on that one. That was a good one. Uh, he was one of those just really good story tellers, and his lyrics and his
Storyteller.
beat, everything just meshed up into his stuff. He was one of
Yeah.
my favorites back then too.
Yeah.
Um, dude, like I said, man, when you look at that, here's this kid from Oklahoma, moves down
Hmm.
to Atlanta. That's a you could have stayed and worked the oil field, or started a country music band. There's all
Yeah.
sorts of things that you probably were influenced to do, and you stepped totally
Hmm.
out of your comfort zone to go chase something
Hmm.
like that, and then um, performed in Atlanta
Yep.
and did your stuff. You get
Yep.
to perform along any side. You check off any milestones that you feel like you're like, hey, I made a mark here, or what have you.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of those areas. Like when we look at Atlanta, like I've performed at an incredibly large amount of venues here in the Atlanta area. I mean, outside of like your coliseums, like I haven't performed at like State Farm Arena or something like that, but like the Fox Theater and but when I look at like really cool highlights, one is like we performed at Showtime at the Apollo in Harlem. We got booed off stage on national TV, but still, it was like we performed there.
Yeah.
But also, we created a song for, well, not for, but it was about the University of Oklahoma football because we're big Oklahoma fans, and ended up getting enough radio play in Oklahoma City and Tulsa to actually be number 98 on the pop radio charts. It was like 1 week in October of that year, so, I can legit say I had a top 100 radio hit. And that was also the year that Oklahoma played USC for the national championship of the Orange Bowl. And I worked it out. I contacted the Orange Bowl committee and told them about the group. I told them I was the manager. They didn't know I was also the artist, but I was like, hey, I'm managing this group and they have this song and it's number 2 in Tulsa, number 5 in Oklahoma City. The fan base of Oklahoma, like they're familiar with this. It'd be great to have them perform. So we got invited to perform at the tailgate, the official tailgate party with the Orange Bowl that year, which had Trace Adkins, Big Boy from Outkast, and God, I forget who the other person was. But we opened up for them, which was kind of cool. And we just did like, I think we may have just done one song, but still, just to have that opportunity was a pretty cool thing.
I like the way you had to deploy your management team on that one. I've
Yeah.
um
Well,
I've
yeah. And when I got there, sorry, this is kind of a funny part. When I got
oh
there, because I was Jeremy Haselwood, the manager, and of course I went by something else as the artist. And so when I got there, I'm like, "Hey, I'm Jeremy," and they were like, oh, "Okay, well, where's the group?" And I was like, "I am the group." Like, wait, you're the group? I thought you were the manager. I'm like, "I'm both." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So you could tell in the moment they kind of felt like a little like they've been had, but they also, like, to me it's just so kind of pretentious. Like, why can't I be the artist and also represent myself?
yeah,
Like, if we're bringing on a product that it serves your market, this group that has this song that people know and resonate with, why does it matter if it's the artist working with you directly or the manager? But I mean, they never said anything, but you could tell like
yeah,
the confusion in the moment, but it was kind
yeah.
of funny.
I I train a guy daily, and he was his band was on the emerging artist list with Justin Bieber on like
Oh
the one
wow.
MTV's. So they had to
Yeah,
do an
yeah.
audio call that day.
Yep.
He was on that list, and some similar stuff, right? He was a rock and roller, and
Yeah.
but I tell him like, and he just kind of brushes over it. He's like, yeah, yeah, it's just this is. I was like, we need to accomplish. He had told me that one time, and I'm like, but you guys talk about it like it's just part of it. But and for
Yeah.
me, I was like, yeah, how many people would, and because let me put this in perspective for everyone else. It's easy for me to sit here and go, oh yeah, I could probably get top 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, and that is an
Yeah.
accomplishment in itself. Just to
Yeah.
to man, um, I know you may not hit the accolades and find the success that you were looking for or whatever, but that in
Mhm.
itself is an accomplishment, man. And
Yeah, and that's how I look at it, man. It's like I look back, I have no regrets. I'm like I was able to do some pretty cool things, you know, and even if I didn't hit those marks or perform at Apollo or for the Orange Bowl, like I still would have been happy with how everything I gave it everything that I had. And that's the thing. If you're
uh,
going after something and you give it everything you have, how can you feel bad about it? But just the fact that we were able to do some of these other cool things and open up for some artists here and there, like it makes for some good stories, but it's kind of like these little nudges of accomplishment and affirmation along the way. But it also gets into like when you do everything you can and you don't reach that level of success, you have to figure out when's time to tap out, you know.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot of people. You hear two sides. Some people are like, hey, never give up. You know, you can. I could have kept rapping till I was 60 years old and finally got my break. But I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know, like I'm not so invested that I'm going to dedicate 50 years of my life until I get a break. Like I think whenever we're going after goals, we do need to reevaluate and see how they're doing. And if you're not reaching where you thought you're doing and you've done everything you can, it might be time to figure out what to do next. And that's really the piece that I got into and had to shift things around. I have no regrets with leaving it, man.
you teed us up for like a perfect little exit. You answered the question I would probably ask you, and that the way you wrapped up there, man. Um, that's a lot of power because that's also like it's easy. It rolls off really easy for you now, and I don't know if that decision was as easy back when you were making it. Um, but the way that now Jeremy looks back on that decision, you know you're 100% confident and you made the right decision. You're 100% in your faith and wherever it's taken you, right? So
Yep.
I commend you for that and really
Thank you.
help leaving us that as we're closing up here to evaluate those goals. And if you're not where you want to be and you're not getting where you want to be, is um, take an evaluation at it. Read Jeremy's book,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah.
if you don't do anything, if this is speaking to you, I think your next step would be to run and get your book. So that takes me to how can folks get in touch with you and find that book?
Yeah, sure. You can go to Amazon, Apple Books, Kindle, and Audible. It's available there. Also on my website, which is jeremyhaselwood.com, and that's Haselwood. Also, you can link up with me on Instagram, jeremy.hazelwood. And if you have a business and you're interested in doing workshops or having me come speak, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So those are the best ways to reach me.
Did you do your audio yourself for your Audible book?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I was like, I've got the microphone. This is actually the microphone that I had in my studio, and I sold all my other equipment, but I was like, I'm keeping this microphone. And I'm like, I'm gonna use it. So why not?
but you got the voice. You got yeah,
I appreciate it.
yeah, you got the voice. If I tried to read mine, everybody'd be like, "What'd he
Oh
say?"
my gosh.
I'm just
Yeah.
joking.
No, but I still get feedback. Oh, he's reading too fast. I'm like, that's why they have little things on your audio books where you can slow it down or speed it up. If I'm too fast, slow it down.
um, I'm excited to keep our conversation between you and I
Yep.
going.
Yep.
Like I tell a lot of my guests, I don't feel like this is ever scratches the surface. And you're welcome
Mm,
if you got something cooking. And you're like, man, who can I go talk to about this? Just let me know, and
yep.
we'll jump back on. And I wanted to commend you on being that messenger of hope, and it falls in line with my breaking the curses. Um, I have my guest on, and I either call him a curse breaker or a hope dealer. And I think you fall
Mm,
into both of those,
love
right?
that.
Because of just your
Yep.
mission, man. And keep doing what you're doing. Anything I can do to support you, make sure you reach out.
Cool. Thank you so much.
That's good, buddy. Man, it's awesome, dude. That's so cool getting to know you.